Hey guys, today I have an interview with Rob from GetBlock and both Frosty and Gigi from NETA. I hope you guys enjoy it. A quick note before we get started is if you guys are looking for one-on-one time with me and want to have basically a conversation or consulting or anything along those lines, I'm providing that through sonofatech.locals.com. The only cost is the $5 a month membership that you sign up for. And I post a Calendly link in there weekly, so you can go ahead and sign up for the week and get some one-on-one time with me. That's the new promo that's been going on. We also have giveaways coming to sonofatech.locals.com in the form of NFTs. I believe we have a soulless giveaway coming, as well as a few other ones. So lots of exciting stuff. Plus, of course, all my mining moves that I don't want to necessarily share with the entire community yet, if it's based on speculative mining, etc., will be over on the locals page. Enjoy the interview. What's up, sons? It's Blind Run with Son of a Tech once again. Today I have with me Gigi and Frosty from NETA BTC and Rob with GetBlock.io. Today we're going to be talking about not only NETA, but we'll be talking about their integration with GetBlock and the smart pools. So we're going to get some high level information as far as how all of that is functioning. And then from there, we will talk about some of the issues that we had this weekend with GetBlock and, of course, the payouts. So if you were worried about that, hopefully we'll get that cleared up with you guys. So, Robert, if you want to introduce yourself, we'll start there.
Sure. Hi, I'm Robert with GetBlock.io. I am one of the managing partners with the team. We started this mining pool back last year in October, and excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And Frosty, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Frosty. I'm from NETA BTC. We are a decentralized on-chain Bitcoin wrapping protocol on Cardano and Ergo. And thanks so much for having us on. Big fan of your channel and of your work in general. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And Gigi?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Gigi. I also work with NETA and I'm very excited to be here. I run a Twitter account which is focused on Ergo and Cardano, so go check it out. Perfect.
So either one of y'all can tackle this question and give us the TLDR on what a NETA is.
Yeah, so it's a wrapping protocol and wrapping Bitcoin on the Ergo and Cardano network. So basically it utilizes the Bitcoin value into the Cardano and Ergo blockchains, which we believe provide more value and utility. So it is kind of a way of allowing people who are Bitcoin holders to keep their Bitcoin, but utilize the value to do all sorts of things and create economic value on the Ergo and Cardano blockchain. So it is also completely decentralized and like other wrap BTCs. So yeah, and it's it also has a token called NETA, and there's two versions, one on Cardano called CNETA and one on Ergo. And yeah, it's we're working on the protocol and hope that you join us in our community.
So to break that down, just so everybody's kind of on the same page, there's three parts to NETA. To my understanding, you have a CNETA, which is on Cardano. You have, I guess, for lack of a better term right now, ENETA on Ergo. And then you have the wrapped protocol, which I guess there would be four parts, or is there only one part? So this is where I get a little confused. You have the NETA BTC, which is going to be the Bitcoin wrapped NETA or version, I guess, the Bitcoin wrapped token as part of the NETA protocol that is currently only available on Cardano, or is that available yet at all? And where will that be? I assume both on Cardano and Ergo, or how does that?
Yeah,
function?
that's a good point. So yeah, I guess technically there's four different facets to it because, like you said, you have CNETA on Cardano, NETA on Ergo, and then you have like a NETA BTC as a whole, which is actually what's getting minted and redeemed for the Bitcoin. But to your point, we're still whether or not the actual, like, a NETA BTC is obviously a long name to have like that as the actual name for it. So like when you looked at wrap BTC on Ethereum, that's just called WBTC. So
Right.
in our case, it'll be something called like XBTC and, ZBTC. And, we know what it is, but we just want to wait a bit. So like, hopefully people don't steal our BTC name. But, if they do, we'll just call an audible and do something else.
Because at this
yeah,
point,
to your point,
because at this point, that's not actually available yet, but you're building up the community fund to essentially release that portion that will be backed, to my understanding, by NETA. Is that how that will work, or?
No, it'll be backed by Bitcoin.
Okay, backed by Bitcoin.
Actually, just about, I want to say 2 days ago at this point, we made our first somewhat large Bitcoin purchase. So we just bought 2 Bitcoin
Okay.
During the dip, I think at an average price at about 19,000 or so. But basically, it is Bitcoin. And so now that'll be the first Bitcoin that we can use to then mint and turn into a NETA BTC, which will be called something like ABTC. And then that will be actually able to be used on the Ergo network.
Okay. And that community fund, that is being powered by getting into the mining. That's being powered by the miners essentially right now, right? Or a portion of it is. Do I have that understanding correct?
That's exactly right. And initially it continues still. It started with the ISPOs on Cardano, where 90% of the ADA that's generated is being used for the community fund. And now, because of GetBlock, the same thing is essentially now happening, where 80% of all the Ergo generate is going back to the community fund.
Got it. Okay. So for everybody that is listening and wondering how this is functioning, right? Essentially, from the miner's perspective, what you are doing is you are solving blocks still for Ergo. And then through a smart contract on the Ergo blockchain, you are helping fund essentially NETA to buy Bitcoin and mint that as part of the wrapped Bitcoin that will be on the network and available there. Do I have that understanding correct?
Yeah, that's right. And there's 2 parts of it, because there's the one part where, like I said, 20% of the funds are going directly towards research and development.
Right.
So in that aspect, it's helping us fund the project. But then the other 80% is going towards this 100% owned community fund. And the reason for that was to try to drive economic value for all of our community holders, because we realized that with the strength of the community, there is a way to really create a lot of value for the community together. So yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead, Gigi.
All that value will be kind of like distributed within the community. So it is growing, and everyone gets benefits from that. So it is really a great way. Yeah. Perfect.
So Rob, you run GetBlock or help. You're part of that. How did GetBlock get involved with NETA?
Well, it's actually an interesting story. So, I've known Frosty probably about 6 months now. I actually, got engaged with him by, becoming part of his community team. So, we were out there, and I joined his community team when it kind of first started, helped out with, setting up, chats and things like that. And we clicked, and, we continued to have conversations. And as we continued to build GetBlock, and the smart contract mining pool and everything like that, it was just a perfect fit.
Awesome. And so give me the idea or the perspective of the smart pools. What are smart pools? Because that's going to be the base layer for how this is all functioning, right?
Sure, exactly. So, picture your traditional mining pool, right? You have a bunch of miners, they connect to a Stratum server, they're submitting shares. Those shares then, find blocks, block rewards are found and then distributed to the miners. So that's your basic mining pool. Our mining pool is a little bit different, where we've taken the Ergo, within the Ergo ecosystem and through development on the Ergo blockchain, our developers have been able to develop smart contracts that could be integrated with the mining pool. So all the data, all the shares, everything that gets processed through the mining pool also gets processed through the smart contract. And what that does is it provides, a lot more transparency and visibility on the blockchain versus, us just having everything in our back end, right? So, it's that old, trust me, bro, right? When you're kind of, working with, or you're mining on mining pools. Well, this just gives our miners, that additional level of transparency, where they can actually see everything that's going on within the mining pool. So that's the kind of the initial concept of it. However, with that, we've identified that, there's tons of use cases that we can build out, from the smart contract itself, right? I think you've seen one of the things that we've done in the past was proof of vote, right? So with proof of vote, as everyone knows, basically miners joined our mining pool, contributed their hash rate to the mining pool, and as they earned ERG, they would also earn the direct ratio of what we called GetBlock tokens at the time. With those GetBlock tokens, we provided, 2 addresses, right? One for yes, one for no. And the miners were then able to submit their tokens to that address. And we used this for EIP 27. However, that, functionality could be used for any type of consensus process that may be needed on the pool or within the blockchain, or you name it, right? I mean, we could do a logo change, right? And put up a vote for it. So once we kind of put that together and launched that, it was a real eye opener, right? Because we just kind of distributed tokens for voting, but what was preventing us from, taking tokens like NETA or Comet or any of these native tokens that are developed on the Ergo blockchain and distribute them just the same way. So from that proof of vote concept, it kind of snowballed into this other idea that we can do, where we can now distribute not only the native asset, which is Ergo, but any additional assets that are also being built on the blockchain. Aside from that, we said, all right, well, we also had this other program that we were looking at called subpooling. So subpooling, in a nutshell, it's you take our mining pool, you kind of branch it out, and you create multiple subpools or mining pools below it. And each one of those mining pools is kind of its own mining pool within our pool. So we said with that, well, we can issue tons of mining pools, right? It could be a NETA mining pool. It could be Comet. It could be, you and I, we want to kind of just pool our hash rate together, find blocks together, and share those rewards between the two of us. So it brings this, not only this social engagement, but it brings a level of creativity in the mining space that I personally have never seen before, right? Where, a common user, a project, anything of that nature can now go onto the blockchain, log on to getblock.io and create their own mining pool and, provide value not only to miners, but in return, the projects themselves or the miners themselves are able to, bring in, those additional mining rewards where, in the sense of a NETA BTC, it's funding their community fund, it's funding research and development. So it's a platform in a sense where, it's almost like a launch pad through mining services, which, in my opinion, it's unique, it's novel. And I think there's a lot more that we can build off of this.
Awesome. And so from my perspective, or from the miner's perspective, right, we have this concept that's happening where there is this 22% extra reward that's coming in. And that has to go through the smart contract, etc. Now, a lot of people, whenever they hear free money like that, they automatically kind of put the guard up and they're like, okay, this isn't real, right? And I think that maybe understanding a little bit of where that extra, NETA is coming from, how that's staked and so on is something that I've been working on the channel personally to kind of show like, okay, well, you got to go into Ergo Dex and this is where you're going to do the swapping. Now, there is a fair point there to where I think you do have to have that liquidity available for the miners to actually get that reward out. Now, what I've seen is about a total of $150,000 equivalent currently for liquidity between Ergo and NETA. And I think that's a good sign, right? That has to grow, though, to meet the mining rewards of somebody moving off of ETH, especially when we talk about larger miners moving over. Have you thought about that? And kind of like, as I know this is grassroots right now for NETA as well, have you guys considered that liquidity portion?
Yeah, so let me take a step back and kind of explain just the way that the mining pool distributes the funds, and then maybe Frosty, you can jump in and kind of explain the liquidity fund side of things. So, obviously with our interactions with Frosty, in order to kind of fund the mining pool or the NETA pool, Frosty had to provide liquidity to the mining pool, which is completely separate than ErgoDex. That liquidity goes into a smart contract. Right, and it's locked up in there. We can't touch it. We can't move it. We can't do anything with it It's locked in that smart contract. What happens is, as the miners are mining, they're, like you said, they're mining ERG. We take that block reward. Once the block is confirmed and processed, that's where it interacts with Ergo Dex IO. That's where it calculates the 22% increase. Then it takes the NETA that's within the smart contract at that calculation and distributes that to the miners. So then at that point, obviously the miners can do what they want with the NETA. They could hold it. They can go on to ergodex.io and they can swap it, you know, for ERG, for SIG-USD, or for any other tokens that's within ErgoDex. Now, outside of that, right, this is only 10 million NETA. There's obviously more than that, you know, within Liquidity on ErgoDex. But let me kind of spin this over to Frosty now, and he could kind of elaborate a little bit on how, you know, he determined the 10 million and how he sees that moving forward.
Right. And that was the next question I was going to have. So perfect. Give us an idea, Frosty.
Yeah, well, I mean, for now, the 10 million just seemed like a good number. You know, I guess they could have done any number, but we wanted to do something that seemed reasonable and that was, you know, that would give us like a good testing point for the future. I can say hello to my friend in the background there. Yeah, so I mean, basically, we figured we'd start with 10 million and see how it goes. You know, oftentimes in the crypto space, you know, you're more or less like experimenting, especially when you're working on, you know, innovative things like what, you know, GetBlock has provided us. So, yeah, we figured we'd start with 10 million and give the 22% increase, which we thought would be attractive for miners. You know, we understand this is a very incentive driven business, mining is. So, and then go from there and then make adjustments. So that's sort of how we started with that. And then, you know, yeah.
Is that going to be something you consider increasing, or is that pretty much a set number and that's where we're going to be at? And once that's out, we're kind of done with this smart pool.
So that, I mean, we still have to make adjustments too. You know, I think even so far, I think we're still under 2 million of the 10 million that has been distributed. Rob would know exactly, but so I think we're, you know, more or less getting close to about 20% of the way through. So I think it's still a bit early to tell, but I mean, we plan to make adjustments, you know, one way or the other to see what's best. But, you know, ultimately this is something that we want to keep driving and, you know, continuing to do moving forward because, you know, we think one, it's a good way to bring awareness to our project, but also to bring awareness to Ergo and to strengthen the Ergo network. So yeah, we plan to make adjustments along the way and we're not exactly sure about what it's going to look like after that.
So a question to Rob, you might have a better idea on this. Obviously with the guide that I put out here last week, we had a huge influx onto your pool. How much has that increased the timeline for the distribution of this initial 10 million?
So, I mean, obviously, you know, there's a lot of contributing factors to that, right? Block find times, you know, how many miners are on the pool, difficulty, which, you know, as miners jump on and off, you know, the blockchain that spikes it up. So, I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, I would say if we, you know, over the past week and a half, we distributed about 20%. I would say, you know, there's probably 3, 4, 5 weeks that we can gain out of this with the initial distribution. But one good point that I think I should share is that we can't touch the smart contracts, right? We can't take money out. We can't change addresses or anything like that. But the one thing that we can do is we can continue to fund liquidity to it. So, you know, if Frosty decides he wants to add another 10 million to the liquidity fund, then he can absolutely do so. Or it could be, you know, another token that may be out there, you know, that he's working on. So, I mean, you know, the sky's the limit in that sense. It is adjustable where we can increase. But, you know, what will happen, and I'm sure this will be, you know, one of your next questions, what happens if the liquidity runs dry, right? You know, it's Frosty's done. He, you know, decides he wants to move forward with something else. And, you know, we're going to change gears and not do the NETA pool anymore. Well, what we would do is we would, you know, obviously provide notification within our UI, within our community channels. And the miners that are on the NETA BTC pool would literally just automatically be shifted to standard mining. So it's not like they would lose any shares submitted. They wouldn't lose any funds, but they would ultimately be shifted to just a standard.
They just get paid out in ERG, right? At that point. Cool.
Exactly.
So I am running low on time due to the fact that I'm not going to upgrade and pay for Zoom. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to make sure that we address the issues that were experienced this week on GetBlock. I believe it was on Saturday was the primary day that basically, from the miner's perspective, no rewards were getting paid out. Obviously, now we're starting to see those come in. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what the cause of that was? Because obviously, people are going to want to know that you understand what the issue was. And then the solutions, moving forward, if there are additional ones, and all of that.
Sure. So, I mean, there were really two main issues, and I'll kind of carve them out separately. So, the first issue is more related to our user interface or our dashboard. As we're calling it the YouTube effect, but, as you and, some of the other YouTubers out there supported, what we're doing and kind of made announcements, it obviously brought in a huge influx of miners. I mean, we were at, I think before we launched subpools, roughly 150 gigahash. And as everyone knows, we spiked up, I think at our peak, 1.4, 1.5 terahash. So 10x growth on the mining pool, right? So again, two things happened. The first one was more related to our backend infrastructure. As far as, our CDN is concerned, basically we were starting to see a huge backlog, right? So, the story that we use, or the example that we use is, look at Netflix, right? You go on Netflix, you log in, you click on what video you want to watch, it's instantly there, right? And how do they do that? They use a CDN, or a continental distribution network, that pushes that content closer to you, right? So whether it's, your local telco company or wherever it is, that content is pushed closer so you can obtain that data immediately as you click that button. Well, it's kind of the same thing on the mining pool, right? We need to push that data, all the mining stats, everything that's visible on our mining pool, we need to push it forward regionally, right? And we're in 7 regions currently. So users have that data. Well, what had happened was, obviously with an influx of miners from, roughly 200 to, let's say, about 1,500 miners, everyone's logging on the same time. Everyone's doing the old refresh. So it increased significantly the amount of calls to the mining pool. So what did that do? That, completely backlogged our backend. Our API calls were not, going through as we wanted. And we had to, completely scale out our infrastructure just to be able to manage that. So what we did, as I mentioned, was, we have 7, global regions where we have Stratum servers, nodes, and, our backend as well. Well, we provided, multiple instances within those regions. So instead of having one instance, or have like 2 or 3 depending on the area. So that allowed us to, not only, scale out our infrastructure a little bit, but, we did build in some, contingencies that as we continue to grow, and if we hit 2 terahash, 3 terahash, we could easily scale that out without impacting the miner's user experience.
Perfect. Okay. And as far as miners getting paid out now, since that's starting to get paid out, what can they expect, and how far along are you with those payouts?
So we're still about 24 hours behind, I would say. And, just taking a step back real quick. So on the Ergo blockchain, it is 720 confirmations. That's the standard confirmation that it takes any mining pool to find a block, confirm it, and then pay out miners. What mining pools do, including ourselves, is we actually front the money to our, pool wallet, and that allows the pool to pay out quicker. So we've calculated a way where we can, confirm the blocks within 20 confirmations and pay our miners out that much faster than, standard mining pools. So that was one factor that I think a lot of miners didn't understand. Now you take that and you compound that with, all these miners connecting to the pool, where obviously we're finding a ton of blocks. And then those blocks, being that they are being processed through the smart contract, it could take, standard time to find, to confirm a block would be 2 minutes, or it could take an hour. So it really depends on the blockchain and the size of the data that's being processed within that block. So anyways, we found a way where we can scale that up. So instead of what we were originally doing, where we were processing 1 block at a time, we now were able to scale it out where we can process 5 at a time. So that's allowing us to catch up. And I would say we're probably still about 24 hours behind, We're finding a ton of blocks still, so it's, you know, compounding the issue a little bit, but I would expect within the next 24 hours that all those blocks will be processed and the miners will be paid accordingly.
Perfect. So thanks for that. Thanks for the reminder on the mute. I was trying to type too. I'm not going to get this upgrade done in time for Zoom. So let's go ahead and get things wrapped up. I do want to have Frosty and Gigi back on to talk more about NETA, if you guys don't mind coming back. But I think this kind of solves everything that we needed to talk about from the mining perspective. So let's go ahead and have you guys wrap it up. Let people know where they can find you and all of that. We'll start with Rob, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So GetBlock.io is where you can find our main site, and if you want to, you know, view our dashboard, that is ergo.getblock.io. And then if you have any questions or you need to reach out to us, feel free to, you know, come to our Discord or Telegram, or you can tag us on Twitter and we will get back to you immediately.
Cool. Where can people find you at, Frosty?
So I guess my personal Twitter account is Frostys with 2 Y's and then AUS. But our Twitter account is at NETABTC. And then real quick, if I could, I would just mention what you can do with the NETA. I think it's important to quickly summarize that because you know, you can trade it for Ergo if you want. On Ergo Dex, you can also trade it for SIG-USD, which is one of the strongest performing stablecoins so far in terms of stability. Or you can use it for the protocol because, you know, when wrapping is live, we're going to be able to use that for governance, and that's going to drive the protocol forward. There's going to be some revenue sharing aspects of it, and also governance on the NETA Liquidity Fund, which now has, I want to say close to like 80,000 Ergo, a few 100,000 ADA, a few 100,000 MintSwap, a few 100,000 Ergo Pad, and 2 Bitcoin. So yeah, those are all the things that you can do with NETA, and you can find us at NETABTC pretty much across all of our platforms. And thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on. And Gigi, where can we find you at?
Yeah, my personal Twitter is Gigi with 2 I's and then AOC. And also, if you're Spanish speaking, follow the NETABTC Spanish account. We do need more Spanish people. So you can find us there, Discord, and Telegram. Yeah, all of those. It's very accessible.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next Tuesday. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit the subscribe button for more, or check out this playlist for more crypto content related topics.